Okay, okay. All right, well, let's get started. Okay, welcome. I'm Curtis Presley, chair of the Cleveland County Democratic Party. And I think the last time that we saw one another, it was back at our county convention on a Zoom meeting. Since then, we have held our district convention, our state convention, as well as our national convention. And we have filled our ballot with the Biden and Harris ticket at the top of it. Now, we do have a full slate tonight, and it's time for us to step up our works. Now, some folks will probably be voting as early as next week, so we need to be getting ready. About our meeting this evening, it's open to all Democrats and friends. I say welcome. If you're a Democrat precinct leader, a committee member, or otherwise an executive committee member, if you're a member of the Democratic Women of Cleveland County, if you're an old hand at volunteering or a newcomer, if you're an elected or an appointed or a candidate to be, to all others, I say welcome for joining us this evening. Other party officers that will be greeting you throughout the night, Ms. Joyce Coleman, who is our first vice chair, Mr. Todd Hagan, who is our second vice chair, Ms. Pam Harmon, who is our third vice chair, Mr. Ken Blevins, who is our secretary, and Mr. Jerry Blake, who is our treasurer, who you will hear from soon. And also that you will hear from Ms. Pat Poston, one of our volunteers. Also with us tonight is Ms. Joyce Gladstone, who is the president of the Democratic Women of Cleveland County, leading some of the most active Democratic volunteers. Joyce, great to see you and the Democratic Women this evening. And you may have to mute yourself, Ms. Gladstone, in order for you to at least speak.
Thank you. It's great to be here. We have a common goal, elect Democrats. I'm with you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gladstone, so much. Also with us is Bessie Wells. She is the Grover Precinct Chair and the first vice chair of the 5th District Democrats. Bessie, when was asked to send in a photo to use for this online event, she wanted to model her famous Democratic vest. And she has been a voting delegate for the National Convention for the past 6 years, six cycles. And she has pins to show it. Glad you're with us, Betsy.
Thank you. Always glad to be home.
Betsy, thank you and the other delegates for adopting a solid 2020 National Democrat platform.
I thought you would be pleased.
Yes, yes. And I would encourage everyone to find it on the internet and read it for yourself. The entire platform covers several pages, but it all boils down to this, on where we stand. We feel that healthcare is a right, diversity is a strength, the economy should work for everyone, and facts should matter. Now, if you had paid any attention to the Republican convention, they did nothing of the sort, no kind of platform. They just gonna stick with their playbook from 2016. Now, as we start, let's pause just to reflect and remember much to be thankful for and much to be concerned about. Now, when this pandemic has really taken a toll on all of us. And so as we reflect on these things, let's reflect on our healthcare workers and the first responders, as well as our cashiers at the grocery store, military members, the food banks, the people whose who's working the food banks. Let's reflect on these things and how much we can make this a whole lot better when we elect Joe Biden as president. Now, at this moment of silence, now I'm X for this moment of silence. So if we would, just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Now I'm gonna ask each of you to recite the Pledge of Allegiance wherever you are, and I'm gonna ask our treasurer, Jerry Blake, to lead us in this. Jerry, if you would. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Can you unmute yourself?
I see Jerry speaking, but his sound is not coming through. So, Curtis, you may need to lead us.
Okay. Okay. Well, if I will, I'll lead us. Okay. Is that Jerry?
Yeah, I think I heard him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, if you're ready, we'll do it again.
Okay, thank
Let
you.
us say our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the United States of America, to the republic
which is
under
which it
God,
stands,
one
under
nation,
God, indivisible,
with liberty,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for that. Now let's look at how our meeting will proceed from here. Okay. As I said, you'll hear from several of us, and right now I'm gonna bring on Miss Pat Poston, and she will tell us the plan moving from here. Hello, Miss Pat.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
We want to remind ourselves what's at stake on November 3rd. Next, Kent. Representative John Lewis told us that the vote is the most precious thing that we have in a democracy to effect change. And he also called it the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have. He referred to it as almost a sacred trust. So let's go back to our purposes, Kent. We want to better prepare ourselves to vote, and not only ourselves, but also to help others. And we want to get a broad feel for the prospective party campaign. Next, Kent. So what we'll do, first, our speakers We'll do a brief snapshot of the political environment we're in. We'll get an overview of current tactics and then see some voting resources. So join with us the rest of the meeting. Next, Kent.
So I think you're finished, right, Pat? So I'll take over.
Yes, Kent. I don't speak Zoom, so you'll have to do it.
Okay, that's fine. I want to share a little bit about Zoom and how we want to use Zoom in this meeting. Some of you may be familiar with Zoom, others maybe not so much, but there's just a few things that we will look at that I hope will give you a little better idea of some of the tools that Zoom has. One thing that you will see, and it's different if you're on a phone, but if you're on a computer, you will notice that there are some icons. You might not see everything that looks exactly like this, but one thing is this little microphone that says mute or unmute. And so when you came into the meeting, we muted everybody just to cut out background noise. But if it's a time when you would like to speak, then all you have to do is unmute yourself with this button. There's another one that has a little camera, and you can turn on your video or turn off your video. That's totally up to you. And there are two other buttons that I want to point out. One is this chat button here, and another is this reactions button. So those are the two that I want to explain a little bit more. So on this one, you can see, let me get my little, my nice little sparkle pen here. You can see if you click on the chat box, this is just a screenshot. So I took a screenshot here just so you can see, but if you click on the chat box, you'll get something that looks like this, and you can send a message. Default setting will be a message to everyone in the meeting. By the way, we've got up to 59 people here, so we've got great attendance. But this is a message for everyone. And you also will see a little 3 dots here. So if you, during the meeting, some of the leadership will be posting and maybe putting some links or some information. And so if you would like to save that information just for yourself, then you can click on these 3 dots and it'll say save chat, and it will save it to your own computer or device. So that's, but I will say that this meeting is being recorded, and a link to it will be placed on our Facebook page so that you will be able to access it later. So the chat button is here, and then you can send a message. If, for example, when one of our speakers is speaking, you can put a chat message here, and then if we have questions afterwards, then the leaders will know to ask that question. The other button, this reactions, you see, you might have some more icons than this, but one is a thumbs up and another little clappy hands here. And if you decide along the way you want to applaud or you want to say thumbs up, that's great. You can click reactions and throw up one of these, and it only stays there for 10 seconds and then it goes away automatically. But that's just a way to show some reaction along the way during the meeting. And there's one more, well, maybe a couple of more things I want to point out very quickly. One is how you see things on your screen. So you'll probably see, and this is, again, this is just a portion of a screenshot. So you will probably see some little boxes on your screen somehow. And so you will also probably see on the boxes these little, something that looks like this, and maybe there'll be another one that looks like a tic-tac-toe board. So if you click on this one, for example, this will stack those boxes on top of each other. If you click on this one, it will only show one box. If you click on this one, it will minimize it to a little bar. But you can make all the boxes minimized, or you can just have one box showing, or a stack of boxes. Or if there's the tic-tac-toe box, you can click on that and it shows a few more. But you control that. That's not controlled by me or anybody else. That's on your own screen. So if you want to just mainly look at the slide that's being projected, then just control that with those little icons there. And the very last thing is you may see something that looks like this up in the corner somewhere. And all that does is it gives you an option between, it may say speaker view, it may say gallery view. And so that if the speaker view, that's, you only see the person speaking. Gallery, you get to see more people. And then if you see something like that, it means full screen or exit full screen. So those are just a few of the Zoom controls. We just want to show you enough that we can have our meeting tonight, this evening, and hope that everybody can find that and that that it makes sense for you. If I can get back now to where I was, yes, here. So as the slide, as it shows you here, use the chat box if you want to send a message. It's like if we were in a big room and we had a microphone, it would be the equivalent of walking up to the microphone and indicating that you would like to speak. And then when you're called on, remember that you are going to be muted. So go to that microphone icon, or if you're on a computer, you can just push the space bar down and it'll unmute you while you hold it down. On your phone, it's going to look a little bit different. On your phone, if you just touch your screen, you should see the icons at the bottom, and you can swipe right and left and see different views. Then once you're called on and you unmute yourself, you can speak. And then once you're finished speaking, you can mute yourself again. And if you phoned into the meeting, as you see there, you can press *9 to speak. And then the one more thing is that you can type in the chat. That's what I explained. It'll go to everyone, and you can, if you want, select an individual participant if you want to have a private chat. And then I told you about the thumbs up and the little clappy hands. Does everybody got that? So I'm gonna move on. And
Betsy had a question.
Yes, Betsy. Wait, I'm
fine. Thank you very much, Kent.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in the chat box right now, so I'm going to pass it along to Pam, I think.
Hello, everyone. As we start and look at what's at stake, I'd like to remind us of one more important aspect. We are the Democratic Party, and it shouldn't be surprising we encourage voting blue all down the ballot. We vote for candidates as individuals, sure, but we hope that you'll remind folks of how crucial it is, especially now, to help ensure Democratic majorities where we can. Think about it. How much more effective President Biden will be if he has House and Senate majorities? What Governor Cooper can do if we elect enough Dems to the state House and Senate to sustain his veto, even if we don't win full control. What assurance it will be to have Democratic judges on the state Supreme Court and Court of Appeals that we know share our interest in fair and equal justice. No one doubts the importance of keeping our Dem majority on the county school board. And there's one more special reason to work toward majorities this election. In 2021, the state legislature will be in charge of redistricting after the census. There will likely be legal battles. We will depend on fair judges, so please don't forget the judges. Back to you, Curtis.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Well, Well, we're going to begin our comments with several of our candidates. At this moment, I don't think Cal Cunningham has joined the meeting at this point. I have been in contact with his people, and they are trying to get him to the meeting. So we're going to push him back to the 3rd if we get him in, and then we're going to go ahead with Judge Chris Brooks along with David Wilson Brown. So if you would, Ken, if you would introduce the
Yes.
judge, please.
Yes, I'll be happy to do that, and we can come back to Cal Cunningham if he can make it. So we're happy to have with us this evening Judge Chris Brook. He's an excellent representative of the fair and qualified Democratic judge candidates on our ballot. Judge Brook is seeking to continue his service on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, to which he was first appointed by Governor Cooper in 2019. He is a Raleigh native. He earned an undergraduate law and law degrees both at UNC Chapel Hill. In addition to practicing law, he has a wealth of experience in fighting for justice and for civil liberties. He worked as a staff attorney at the Southern Coalition for Social Justice in Durham. From 2012 to 2019, he was the legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina. He has a long record of service and has already had a tremendous impact in helping the citizens of North Carolina. Judge Brook, we look forward to hearing from you as you help us understand why elections for judges in North Carolina are so critical this year. If we have time, we would like to leave some time at the end for questions. So if people have questions along the way, you can be putting those into the chat box. I'm not sure if I am going to be able to put you like front and center, but at least we'll hear you.
Yeah, so I think I'm seeing John Gaston on my main screen. Is that what's happening for other folks as well? I'm not the most proficient with Zoom.
Well, it depends on it depends on each individual screen, and if people have it on speaker view, then they will see you as the speaker.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you so much for those words at the outset from everybody. Curtis, thank you for leading the meeting this evening, but also for setting the tone about the importance of what's at stake here in these next few months, and the stakes are exceptionally high. I just want to take a few moments and introduce myself and tell you a little bit more about myself. And then I want to tell you about the wonderful slate of Democrats we have running statewide for the North Carolina Supreme Court and the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I'm Chris Brook. I grew up in Raleigh. My mom was a public school teacher in Wake and Johnston counties in the Triangle area. My joke is that you could walk to my middle school and my high school in downtown Raleigh from the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I went to Daniels, now Oberlin Middle School in downtown Raleigh, and to Broughton High School, also in downtown Raleigh. I'm a double Tar Heel. Go Heels! If there are any Wolfpack or Blue Devil fans out there, we can bury the hatchet for the next 2 months and do what needs to get done. We can come back to that when necessary. But I'm a double Tar Heel. Went to UNC for undergraduate and for law school. And then I practiced for a period of time for 3.5 years at a law firm in downtown Raleigh. And then, as was mentioned, I was the staff attorney, a staff attorney at the Southern Coalition for Social Justice, handling everything from voting rights to heirs property work, protecting family land, especially Black family land in the eastern portion of our state. And that was before being the legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina. I was the legal director of the ACLU for the 7 years prior to being appointed to the bench by Governor Cooper. And so in that, in those various different experiences that I had, I practiced across our state and federal court system. I practiced at the state trial court level. I practiced at the federal trial court level. But I also led appeals in our state and federal appellate court system, including successfully leading litigation before the Supreme Court of the United States. And that was exceptionally helpful preparation for me before I was appointed to the Court of Appeals, because not only had I dealt with a wide variety of subject matter areas, from employment law to voting rights to constitutional rights, but I'd also dealt with it at every level of our court system. And that really prepared me well to serve on the Court of Appeals. I was appointed by Governor Cooper in April of 2019. So I've been on the Court of Appeals now for around 16 months. In that period of time, I've written 78 opinions. So you know that they keep us busy there. And the vast majority of those are majority opinions, and the vast majority of those majority opinions are unanimous opinions. So you know that occasionally I'm able at least to be persuasive in what I put together. But I think if you look at those opinions, you see what you want in a judge. You want a judge that is going to work hard on a day in, day out basis. You see a judge that takes every case seriously and is not a rubber stamp for any interest, and is going to just decide the case fairly and impartially based on the facts and law at issue in the case. And, you know, why should you care about the Court of Appeals? First, because every manner of dispute comes before our court. More than half of our docket is our criminal matters. So if criminal justice reform matters to you, then our court should matter to you. But also workers' compensation, family law disputes, homeowner association disputes. If you can dream it up, it comes before the Court of Appeals. But also, I assume that everybody on the call this evening knows how important it is to keep Chief Justice Sherry Beasley as the Chief Justice of our North Carolina Supreme Court. We all know how important the Supreme Court is. But the reality is more than 90% of cases in our appellate court system end at the Court of Appeals, because the Supreme Court gets to decide which appeals they hear. The Court of Appeals, you have an appeal of right to our court. So let me talk very briefly just about the slate that we have here in North Carolina of wonderful Democrats running for the Court of Appeals. First, I mentioned Chief Justice Sherry Beasley. She's leading our slate of judicial candidates. She has done a wonderful job leading the judiciary during the pandemic, making hard decisions under difficult circumstances, but also done a wonderful job leading the judiciary after the killing of George Floyd, speaking forthrightly about the need for us to all be thoughtful about where our justice system has fallen short. Governor Cooper also appointed Justice Mark Davis to the North Carolina Supreme Court. He's on the ballot in November. He's the first ever Jewish justice of our North Carolina Supreme Court. We have to keep him on the Supreme Court. Judge Lucy Inman, one of my best friends on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, is running for an open seat on the Supreme Court. She's running against Judge Phil Berger Jr. We have to get Lucy Inman on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And then I'm running with 4 other Democrats for 5 seats on the Court of Appeals. Judge Reuben Young, who was appointed with me to the Court of Appeals, currently serving. Judge Laura Cubbage, who's a Superior Court judge in Guilford County, Greensboro. And then Tricia Shields and Grace Dyers, who are wonderful attorneys who have been active in our appellate court system for a long period of time. Each one of those judges that I just mentioned, those 8, none of us are running against one another. We're all on the ballot in November, and we have only, I think in every instance, just Republican opponents. We have no Democratic opponents. So you can vote for all 8 of us. But also all 8 of us have a variety of experience that will serve our court system well, but also a commitment to treat every North Carolinian who appears in front of us with respect, and a commitment to making certain that equal justice under the law isn't just something that we write on the courthouse, but is something that we actually practice on a day in, day out basis. You know, I look down and there's 63 people here tonight. 63 people. That is unbelievably exciting to see this many folks fired up 2 months out from the election. So I'll leave you with a challenge. Y'all are folks in Cleveland County who the community turns to for information. Y'all are folks who know a lot about everything that's going to be on the ballot in November. We all know, I hope, how important it is to vote in the presidential race, in the gubernatorial race, for Cal Cunningham for US Senate. But not everybody knows about the importance of the judicial races. If you wake up, you know, and look at Twitter and see something about RBG on Twitter and start to lose your breath, well, you should care about your state judiciary as well, because we also are oftentimes the last line of defense when it comes to democracy and when it comes to safeguarding individual rights. So I'll close by saying what Chief Justice Beasley says. Don't forget the judges. Make sure you get information out to your friends in Cleveland County about the judges and about the wonderful Democrats we have running for the North Carolina Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. Thank you so much. Sorry to ramble on as I do, but I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be with y'all tonight.
We appreciate so much your being with us. I don't know, Pam, have you been checking in the chat box to see whether there are any questions that someone would like to pose?
I do see one, Kent, from Gerald Albert Laws. Gerald, would you like to ask your question?
Well, I guess I wrote it. Judge Brook, I recently moved to Shelby, North Carolina from Texas. Judges in Texas are elected from the most basic courts to the 2 high courts in Texas. And I know well that most voters there never knew anything about judicial candidates, not at all. They just voted by party. So how do you campaign and how do you get known by the voters here?
Yeah, Gerald, that's it's a really good question, and it's a really big challenge. You know, first, we've had a system that's changed a lot in recent years. We used to have a nonpartisan judicial elections in North Carolina, which, you know, the legislature can do what the legislature wants to do about that. But I was a proponent and a supporter of nonpartisan elections. You know, I've been a registered Democrat in North Carolina since I was 18 years old. But when I walk up the steps of the Court of Appeals, I don't put on a blue robe. I don't think about my job as being a Democratic judge. I think my job is to keep politics out of it and decide the case fairly and impartially based on the law and facts that are in front of me. The legislature also took away public financing for judicial candidates. You know, we historically have had public financing that really all candidates, when it was available, participated in, and that made it easier for us to get the word out about our races. But it also meant that we didn't have to spend as much time raising money. But to your question, Gerald, you know, first, I show up to a lot of events like this. You know, I'm at Rotary events. I spoke at a Zoom for the Greensboro Financial Planners organization a few days ago. Before the pandemic, I was sort of crisscrossing the state trying to meet as many people as possible. And now during the pandemic, I'm largely here. This is you now know what my dining room looks like a little bit. And I'm largely here on Zoom, trying to meet folks this way as much as is possible. I think you're right that a lot of people do vote on party labels. By my name will be a Democrat, and you know that is what that is. There's not tons that I can do about that. What I really value about events like this is it's an opportunity to talk about my experience and what I bring to the court. That's why I want to be getting votes. You know, again, I'm a proud Democrat, but I want to be getting votes because I have the experience to do the job. I am doing the job well right now, and I have the right temperament for the job, which is to treat everyone fairly and with respect that comes into our courtroom, but also to work hard on a day in, day out basis, ensuring that we fairly administer justice in each of the cases that I do get to vote in, and in each opinion that I write.
Well, that's a great answer. Thank you. Very, very well said. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Pam, have you noticed any others that have come in through the chat?
I don't see any in the chat. Does anyone else have a question for Judge Brook?
I do, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
Hey, Judge. I wanted to ask, how do the folks on the judiciary feel about the wow, I can't say that word tonight, politicization of voting rights? I mean, this should be something that should be a bare, obvious right for every American citizen. And it seems like the other side has made this with gerrymandering, with all the aspects of voter suppression, with voter ID. They're really making an attack on that right to vote. How on the bench do you all view that push to make you all be so, politicized?
Yeah, David, it's a really good question. And also, I get to be a little bit unsatisfying here because as a judge, I need to be a little bit careful about what I say because there are cases that might come in front of me. So I'll just sort of deal a little bit in facts here. And first, I spent a large portion of my career in private practice protecting voting rights of North Carolinians. I've only ever practiced in North Carolina. I was a part of the litigation that successfully challenged the HB, the voter suppression law that was put in place that cut early voting, that cut same-day registration, that imposed a voter ID requirement. So I highlight that just to speak about what I did when I was in private practice, but also about the experience that I bring to the court. I know what the law is and what the constitutional law in particular is relating to voting rights. I think that's a value add to our court. The other thing that I'll highlight for you is that we had a case in front of our court recently that was related to the most recent voter ID iteration that was passed by the legislature. And if you want to talk about, something that shows the importance of our court, a 3-judge panel on our court, there are 15 judges on our court. We sit in randomly assigned 3-judge panels. A 3-judge panel of our court unanimously held that voter ID requirement was unconstitutional. And that's the reason there's not a voter ID requirement for the November 2020 election. So I say that not to say that I would have voted the same way, because I don't know that case and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to say that. But ultimately that was a unanimous decision, so it didn't go up to the North Carolina Supreme Court. So it shows how important the Court of Appeals is in a real practical sense. But it also shows the importance of having judges, I think like me, but I think also like the other 7 Democrats that I'm running with, who have represented folks from all walks of life, who recognize that some restrictions can have real consequential impacts. And I saw, what the final thing that I'll say is I was fortunate enough at the MLK celebration many months back to see former Attorney General Loretta Lynch speak. And she talked, she was the final Attorney General during President Obama's administration. And she also has deep North Carolina roots, which was wonderful to hear her talk about. And she, to me, hit the nail on the head. She said, if your vote didn't matter, we wouldn't be fighting about it so frequently in the legislative branch, right? And I think
Right.
that's something when you're talking to folks over the course of the next 2 months, the fact that voting rights has been such a hot potato in our state this past decade shows the power of people and shows the power of an engaged electorate. And that's why, just to be honest, on a Tuesday evening, it's so wonderful to be with 64 folks who are obviously excited about voting in November and excited about learning more about candidates. And I can't thank you all enough for the opportunity. And David, I can't thank you enough for a really great question.
Very good. Are there any other questions for Judge Chris Brook before we move along? Well then, Judge, we certainly, oh, wait, I heard.
This is Jerry Blake. I would like to ask a question. That's something that puzzles me, and I wonder if there have ever been cases that might be related to the question. But I was amazed to recognize the last time we voted on constitutional amendments that what appears on the ballot is a description of the amendment as opposed to the text of the amendment. And I find it difficult to understand how that could be a fair act.
Yeah, Jerry, there were a number of constitutional amendments on the ballot last time out in 2018, if memory serves, and instead of the actual text of what's going into the North Carolina Constitution, there would be a summary of that. I don't know if there's been litigation related to that. I know that that has been a practice, and I know that there is like sort of a commission that reviews and tries to make sure that the summaries are accurate. But that has been a contentious process, certainly was a contentious process in 2018. So I'm not familiar with any litigation there, but it is an important issue. Jerry, you're also hitting to me on another very important point, which is, and it's a point that I alluded to in my earlier comments, all of us know the importance of the Supreme Court of the United States, right? And
Yes.
all of us know about the importance of the issues that come in front of us, come in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's why, everyone worries so much about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her health in moments like this. We also have, we have a federal constitution, but we also have a North Carolina constitution. And oftentimes the North Carolina Constitution is interpreted the same as the federal Constitution, but it's not always interpreted the same way. And oftentimes offers greater personal protections of liberties and rights to North Carolinians. So it's exceptionally important to have fair, impartial judges at the state court level as well, who are not just going to be a rubber stamp for legislative enactments, but are going to really look hard about whether they comport with the federal and state constitution as well.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. I don't want to cut this off if there are any more questions. Judge Brook, I really want to, on behalf of all of us, thank you. I kind of feel like, you've had 64 people invited into your dining room. So we appreciate your hospitality for having us all over.
Well, I appreciate y'all's hospitality. I'm kind of in 64 living rooms and dining rooms in Cleveland County, it seems to me as well. But I mean, obviously, we all, those of us who are running in November and are on the statewide ballot, very much miss the opportunity to get to visit with y'all in person. But really appreciative of these opportunities to be with you. This is a moment I've been saying a lot for looking for silver linings and making lemonade out of lemons, right? So this has been a great opportunity to be with y'all in a way that's safe. So thank you for this opportunity. And I just want to say that I hope that everybody takes care and that everybody's family is doing as well as possible in these trying circumstances. Let's go get them in November. Thanks for your help.
Thank you again, Judge Brook, for being with us. So now I will turn it over to Pam, who will be introducing our next speaker.
We have another opportunity to make a splash, this time in the U.S. Congress District 5 seat by replacing Virginia Foxx with David Wilson Brown. We've come to know David well as he led our fight against Patrick McHenry in our former gerrymandered 10th Congressional District. In 2020, he's leading our fight in the 5th District, redrawn by Republican legislators in a strange shape, stretching from North Carolina's south border to its north. Our opportunity in part lies in the fact that Cleveland and Gaston counties make up a substantial percentage of the district's population. If we turn out a large number of Democratic votes here, we can help outnumber Republican votes elsewhere. We are happy to hear from you tonight, David. Please be sure to let us know how your campaign is going and what we can do to help you. Now to you, David.
Wow, what a great introduction. Thank you, Pam, and definitely set me up to not have to go over some stuff, so I appreciate that. Yeah, so I ran in 2018. Many of you may have voted for me, and I really appreciate that. We had a great showing as a first-time candidate for Congress, which, you know, running for Congress in what's considered a tougher district is always going to be hard because many times we don't have people at the state level who have a big enough profile to leapfrog off of to make a really strong run against a sitting incumbent. You got to remember, both Patrick McHenry and Virginia Foxx, my new opponent, have been in office since 2004. So, you know, any time that you talk to anyone from any side of the aisle, you know, if they give you any inclination that they're not big fans of people that are career politicians or believe strongly in term limits, your election is your term limit opportunity. And we have a real opportunity in this election to remove someone who has aligned herself continuously with extreme radicals on the far right. She constantly stands up against women's right to health access. She constantly lines up against LGBTQ communities. She constantly lines up against education. She's actually the ranking member on the House board of, the House Committee of Education and Labor. And she literally quoted in June that, or I'm going to quote her, she said that she's a student of the Constitution, and not once is the word education in the Constitution. She firmly believes it's a states' rights issue and that the federal government should not even have a Department of Education. So when we think about who we want to represent us in Congress, to be our voice in Washington, to make sure that the things that we stand for are put foremost, this woman does not do that for us. She does not stand for the things that the Democrats in North Carolina and especially in Cleveland County know to be important. The things that I, David Wilson Brown, which I didn't mention my name, I'm always supposed to mention my name, the things that I will stand for if you give me the opportunity to go to Washington to represent you are very core basic things. I want to make sure that everyone has health care in America. We should make sure that health care is a right. I believe that Medicare for all is the option for that. I also recognize the realities of Congress that we might not quite get there, but I would certainly be someone who will champion getting Medicare for all, because I think that's the solution that's going to save this country a ton of money and make sure to deliver quality health care for every American from cradle to grave. I think that we strongly have to recognize the need to reward the dignity of work with a living wage for no matter what you do. We have to get to a place where we in America do not set people up to fail by having them earn under a living wage for a job. So this is something that I want to champion and make sure. And then we're not talking about minimum wage. When you talk about minimum wage, you think about that term, that means that somebody is going to look at you and say, listen, this is the bare minimum I can pay you by law for you to do this job, for me to make a profit. That is immoral. And lastly, of my core premise is exactly against what Virginia Foxx stands for. I believe in a strong, funded public education system. I believe that we need to make sure our teachers are paid well and that our administrators have the funding they need to make sure our future generation is as educated as possible, because we're not losing jobs to immigration, we're losing jobs to automation. We have to protect our future society by making sure our students are well educated for the jobs of tomorrow, and make sure that we have strong technical schools for people that aren't quite in that bracket to go to academia, to make sure that they can come out of school with a very productive life and make a good living to provide for their families. These are very basic things that we should be able to provide for every American. Any of you who have heard me speak before, I may have mentioned FDR's Second Bill of Rights. If you don't know it, look it up. In January 11th of 1944, in the midst of World War II, one of our greatest presidents proposed a second Bill of Rights of economic stability that would really make a difference to the American way of life, especially coming out of the Great Depression. If we had enacted that, a lot of the battles that we're fighting today would not be what they are. We've allowed greed in America to drive our agenda, and we have to get back to making sure that we put people first in America, and this is a way to do that. And that's what I want to champion. That's what I fight for. And I would gladly talk to anyone who might call me a socialist or communist and point out, A, they don't know what the heck they're talking about, but B, that the things that we're talking about are not radical ideas. These are very basic ideas in Western culture, and that we can deliver on this for the people of America, because we have to. We have to do this. It's the only way that we're all going to succeed. And it would do a lot to eradicate a lot of the issues that plague us right now. So that's the things that I fight for. That's what I stand for. Of course, I want to protect our environment. Of course, there's so much other things dealing with the inequality and racial justice. We have to deal with these things for sure. But if we take care of these basic needs for every American, no matter your age, your religion, your creed, what your national origin is, what your gender identity is, what your sexual preference is, any of those things, if you had those three things taken care of, that would really make a difference in everyone's lives. And that's why I fight for them. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I think it's really important that as Judge Brook says, I got too familiar with there, Judge. As he says, it's very hard in the age of COVID to campaign. Talking from someone who actually ran in 2018 and running again in 2020, it is completely different. Obviously, raising funds is hard. I'm not the kind of person that can get on a phone and beg someone to donate to a campaign in the midst of an epidemic when we have, 16 million people out of work, or maybe it's more than that at this point. When we're losing Americans to a preventable, not preventable, but yeah, preventable from if we did the things that we're supposed to do, and we didn't have a president who refused to wear a mask and set such a bad example to most Americans, we would be able to fight this much better. And that's one of the things that we're driving for. It's not just my election in this district. My district and what I do in my district is about getting out Democratic votes up and down the ballot to make sure we protect our judges, but to also make sure that we deliver for our state a presidential victory, keep our governor in office, make sure that our Council of State stays as Democrat and get as many more as we can, and make sure that we can deliver the Senate of Cal Cunningham. Because if we can get Cal Cunningham in the Senate, I can almost guarantee you we will take over the majority of the Senate. And as somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Pat, if we can deliver a majority in the House and the Senate, and to the President Biden, who I know is going to get in, I have confidence is going to get in, we will have an opportunity to undo all this garbage that has happened in the Trump administration. We'll have the opportunity to put in place things that will prevent the level of corruption that has occurred during this administration. He's exposed all these gaps in our laws that have allowed this lawlessness to go on from his administration. We need to fight and fix that and close those loopholes and make sure that we deliver a better road forward for every American, because that is our sworn duty as servants of the public. And that's what I would want to go to Washington to do for you.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions for David? Let's see. David, I do.
My
I'm
field
sorry.
director is
David.
posting
Sam.
links in the chat, by the way.
Yes, I see someone has asked in the chat what the address is to mail you a check, David.
Yep, and my field director has answered that. It's P.O. Box 351, McCaddenville, North Carolina 28101. It's in the chat.
Okay, that's great. We do have some folks on the phone, on landlines that can't see the chat, so I appreciate
Oh, absolutely.
you sharing
I'm
that.
glad you said so.
Yeah.
Easy way to do it online is support.dwb.com. And if you want to volunteer, we desperately need volunteers as a grassroots campaign. We always need more people to help out. And as I said, contributing to our campaign is going to help turn out Democrats in this district for up and down the ballot. You can do volunteer, the number 4, dwb.com. And that's our volunteer sign up page.
I know you guys have been doing a really good job training volunteers too. So
Yes,
that's great. Kent, do you see anything else for
I
Dave?
see one from Ali Paxoy.
Oh,
Good Judge Paxoy. Good to see you here. Has there been talk in the current administration about cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security? Absolutely. Trump has come out and said that directly on multiple occasions. And his latest thing, pardon me, as a proposal to help businesses during this crisis, he's talked about cutting payroll taxes, which, if you know the structure of things, would totally gut Social Security. So absolutely, that's a big message that you can go to with people across the aisle, the recognition that if we allow this administration a second term, if we allow the Republicans to stay in control of the direction of this nation, we will lose all of our earned benefits. They're not entitlements, they're earned benefits that we've worked so hard for, and that great leaders like FDR and LBJ have helped deliver. And those are all Democratic things. That's why they're against them. They don't want to see us continue these systems that help make sure that we can have a good retirement after hard life's work.
Jerry Blake, do you have a question?
I do. About maybe as long as 10 or years ago, I heard the United States Attorney General speak to the NAACP convention, and one of the things he said was striking to me, in that he said the reason there were not more actions to assist people in the defense of their civil rights was they could get no budget for that. And that made me think, and I believe it's been confirmed by the things I've read and studied since, that there's not much of a way an individual who oftentimes is a poor and discriminated against individual has a way to bring an action against someone who has willfully violated the law, but gets away with it because nobody's appropriating money for the government to do something about it. I wonder if you have any thoughts about what sort of legislation might make it possible for an individual to have some access to a small amount of money to get a lawyer interested in determining whether he has a case that might result in a considerable contingency settlement?
That's a really good question. And Jerry, I'm going to be honest, I don't have an easy answer for you. I have heard of several states talking about making sure that public defenders are equally funded as prosecutors, as a means to make sure that the underprivileged are not held to a different standard when it comes to representation in the court. But I don't know about being able to bring support to bring lawsuits in that situation. I'll have to get back to you on that one because I don't have a.
Well, I may have slightly misstated my case, and I think a big part of the problem is right now an individual citizen does not have some specific legislation he can depend on that makes individuals who commit these wrongs liable for the cost in terms of money and job activity and things of that sort. And even more important than the money idea is the idea of doing away with a lot of the restrictions that keep people from being able to sue to defend themselves as an individual who has been violated.
Right. Right. Certainly, I would like to pursue legislation that would help make sure that we do not have a two-class system in our legal system. A good example of this, I heard somewhere that some billionaire was building a new headquarters or something somewhere and racked up something like $10,000 in parking violations, but to him, it was no big deal. Whereas if that were to happen to someone underprivileged who was violating the law in that case, their car would be, towed and taken away from them, and they would probably end up in jail very quickly. We do have to work to eradicate the gross difference in income inequality that we have in this nation right now. I think I saw recently that in the 50s, the worker to CEO pay raise range was a 20-to-1 ratio, where now it's something like 320-to-1. In other words, how much a CEO makes versus the workers that work for them. This is something that we have to address in this nation. Where we're headed is unattainable for society, and literally our right to vote is our last means to protect us against what would be an oligarchy or an autocracy where we are completely powerless. And some could argue that with the organization and treatment of corporations today, that we may already be there and are just going through the motions. I hope that not to be the case. I believe firmly in our democracy, our republic. But this election is so substantial for that kind of issue, Jerry, and everything else that we're talking about here, that it's become a strong, slippery slope of folks who are doing what they can to look out for themselves in a very, in the moment and no regard for the future. You think about how corporate greed is eating away at our environment, and what are they gaining from that? They're gaining monetary figures, much of which they can't even spend in their lifetime. Whereas the results of that are going to last for generations and could even, endanger life on Earth. We have to do the things to be good stewards of God's creation on this earth. We have to be good stewards of the people and make sure that the least of us is taken care of and protected to get back on their feet. So, the right always talks about pull yourself up from your bootstraps, but that's coming from someone who owns a leather factory, right? They have the tools to take care of themselves in such a way that they can't comprehend the struggle that daily life can be for so many people. And even, earning a good salary in this nation at this moment, you can still be just a few paychecks away from being in real trouble because of the way we set up the system, and we have to fix things. And it would take some minor changes to really right some grave wrongs in this nation. And those are the types of things I would be passionate to pursue and make sure that when we talk about standing together, that when we talk about equality in America, and not just equality, but equity, to make sure that we all have an equal chance to succeed. Man, that's the kind of thing that I'm going to fight for every day, in and out, hours on end, because what are we doing up there if we're not doing that? What are we doing in Washington if that's not the passion that drives us on a daily basis? I mean, I've talked about doing certain things like putting my own family's meager savings into a blind trust so that when I go to Washington, people don't think that I'm up there to enrich myself, that I'm not even in a position to enrich myself. I want to make sure that we send people to Washington that are truly out for everyone and not just for themselves.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, David, we certainly appreciate you joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to have you, and you've been just completely generous with your time. Any time we've reached out to you, you've been there for us, and we appreciate it. We hope we can repay you at the ballot box.
You took the words out of my mouth. That would be awesome. Let's do it.
Okay.
You guys got the Democrats to do it. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to turn this back over to Curtis so we have a lot of business to get to. And I know some of these folks were going to get tired of waiting on us, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks, Pam. I know that we all are waiting for Cal Cunningham to come in. He hasn't came into the meeting at this point, but he do have a representative here, Jacques Johnston, who's here on behalf of Cal Cunningham. Jacques, do you have anything that you want to share with us from Cal? And then we'll keep moving on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Curtis and Cleveland County Democrats. My name is Jacques Johnson. I am the regional political manager for the Cal Cunningham campaign. Cal is super sorry he couldn't hop on the call tonight. There's a little bit of a scheduling conflict, but I am happy to be here and happy to help be the voice for Cleveland County when it comes to the Cal Cunningham campaign. But I did just want to give you all a quick state of the race update of where we are as a campaign and what it's looking like. No, I don't need to tell you, but we couldn't be fighting for change at a more important time than now. The struggles that Cals are hearing from all across the state are hard to believe, from unprecedented unemployment to folks who've lost their health care. With it, their peace of mind, and their peace of mind of knowing that they can see a doctor during a global pandemic. We are being challenged as a country, but Cal has always chose to run to those challenges, and that's why we are super excited to be working so hard to make sure we get them elected. With less than 3 months until election day, we are in an incredibly strong position, and our momentum keeps building every day. Last week, we announced that we raised more than $3.6 million in the month of July alone, and that is $3 million more than Tom Tillis raised in the months of April, May, and June combined. The number that we are proudest of the most, though, is 10,000. And that is the number of North Carolinians that who have donated to the campaign in just the month of July alone. Throughout this campaign, we have received contributions from all 100 counties across the state. And since the primary, Cal has had an event, virtually, of course, in all 100 counties of the state. So this is showing real momentum that we are having right here in the state of North Carolina. So I will drop in the chat here some links of where you can get connected with our campaign, learn about different events and stuff that we have going on. Feel free. I also will put my email. I am the regional political manager for all of Western North Carolina. So if you have any problems, you need yard signs, bumper stickers, or anything like that for your party or for your surrounding parties, please let me know. I look forward to working with you more, Curtis, and your team as we make sure not only to elect Cal, but we elect Democrats up and down the ballot. So thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Jacques. I want to add my thanks to all of the speakers. You know, proud to have you guys on the ballot, and you can be assured that I will be exercising my right and voting for you guys. Unfortunately, we don't have time at this meeting to where we can have other Democrat candidates that's on the ballot to come and speak to us, but we will be working with them to make sure that they get their message out and make sure that they get seen from the State House to the county commissioners to the school board. So we haven't forgotten you guys. We're definitely going to be working with you guys to make sure that you get elected as well. So, and hopefully at our next meeting, we can take time out and let each one of you to introduce yourself and get familiar with the party. Now, switching gears just a little bit here. We're going to take a look at the campaign ahead and what we all can be doing to get involved to help this party become blue in Cleveland County and the state to become blue. So I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Pat. And Ms. Pat, if you would go through some things for us, please.
Yes, Curtis. I'll try to go fast and concentrate on the key facts. First of all is that you must request an absentee ballot now through October 27 is the deadline. An important thing, many of our young people are registering new at the DMV because they can do it online and easily. Remind them, if you will, that if they're going to register, if they want to vote November 3rd, then they must register by October 9. That's because state law requires you to be registered 25 days before an election, but you can vote at early voting, which is October 15 through 31. So remind your young people that you know that if they're going to register at the DMV, do it by October 9, or go do it and vote, register and vote at early voting. Remember, election day is November 3rd. Absentee ballots must be postmarked by 5 p.m. that day, and the last day for mail ballots to arrive and be counted is like a few days later. So get your votes in, gang. Next, Kent, please. I'd like to show you briefly what registration is like. You see that Democrats and Republicans are virtually equal at about 35%, with unaffiliateds coming up at 28%. In 2016, turnout was about 78, 79%. Democrats slightly lagged Republicans. We have to do a little bit better than that. Next, Kent. So our key party strategy, given that registration that you just saw there, the party officers have been speaking with many of you about what our key strategy ought to be this year. And foremost is getting out the vote. That's what we've really got to concentrate on. And also concentrate on encouraging new voters, especially young people. And as David Wilson Brown mentioned, we have to find ways to do this in a time of pandemic when we don't have the usual things that we do. So we have to enlist and train volunteers. Next slide. These are some key tactics that we're exploring and hope to tell you a little bit about today. And I'll call on Joyce Coleman, please, to list those. Joyce?
Yes, Pat, thank you. I do want to share with you the many different ways that we can be involved. The ways are phone banking, that's phone calling and texting. Other ways are the mailing of the postcards. Then we have the signage where we'll just ask people to sign to commit to vote. We also have the social media, using our phones, our computers to reach out to our friends, family, everyone, just to remind them the importance. And then distributing literature where we already have our Democrats marked and making it easy for those that want to vote to not have any questions. And then of course we have the one-on-one when you're out at the grocery store or you're getting gas, you are visiting with family, or family's visiting with you. Just to have that conversation, the importance of being registered. If you're not not registered, then if you're registered, making sure you vote. So those are the things that we can do. Now, what we want to do is start with the phone banking and texting. Many of you might have already met this young man that's gonna come forward. He was raised in the Kaiser area. While in this area, attended Cleveland Community College. He studied there, moved away into the Raleigh area, and just recently graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a major in political science. So without further ado, we are going to present to you Carlos Paramo.
Hi, thank you for introducing me. So I'm, like she said, I'm the field organizer here in Cleveland County. I've been working here for about, I think, a month and a half under the state party. And right now, what we're doing, because of the pandemic, we're trying to build the campaign. So we're trying to recruit volunteers, retain volunteers, and our volunteers are helping us make phone calls to residents and Democrats here in Cleveland County. We're sending texts to people in Cleveland County and throughout the state. And we're just trying to get the vote out. We're trying to build up the team we need. So when October comes around and when the get out to vote operation begins, we have the folks needed to text people and call people and tell them where the precincts are at and just get out the Democratic vote, because here in Western North Carolina, we need to cut down in Trump's margins of victory. We have the ability to do that because Republicans are not going to invest as much money as they have in past elections, because Western North Carolina predominantly votes Republican. So if we as a team work, we can cut down the margins, and that will lead to Joe Biden winning North Carolina and winning the White House. And that's my email. I will also put my number in the chat. But we have trainings every Saturday on Zoom, phone bank trainings at 11 a.m. And that's the best way for you guys to become involved and help make a difference. That's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Carlos. We're going to ask that if you're interested, to please reach out to Carlos. You, family members, neighbors, reach out to Carlos. We would love to have you come in as a volunteer. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce.
Joyce?
Uh-huh.
Joyce.
Yes.
This is Betsy, and thank y'all so much for the work that the officers have put into this meeting. I do have a question for Carlos. Carlos, the script that for the phone calls, and I think it's very effective to do it this way. But will it change for individual candidates, or is the state party planning to do, say, like a call in one day just for Cal Cunningham, or just for Joe Biden, or just the local candidates, or will still be calling for the whole slate, or the judges?
It'll change. The script did change this past week. We added a few more candidates because I think before on the script it was just Joe Biden, Cal Cunningham, and Roy Cooper. But now we've added more candidates, and that's how it will be for the next month. And when we get to October, we'll have volunteers that will just help us on like calling people and getting them out to vote. And that's when the script will change to like we'll be telling someone that this is your precinct, and this like the important voting dates. And we're also going to tell them like the Democratic slate, but we're going to include those important voting dates in October when voting comes around. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
It does, and Carlos, it's good to have you home. We miss you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back virtually. I'm glad to be back in Cleveland County.
I wonder if I could ask a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about how the phone banking works? In the past, we had a contractor come in and we had a location donated by an individual where we could put in the phones and the computers and do it.
Yeah.
with the equipment supplied there. And I take it in the last while, the technology of phone banking has changed a great deal, and I wonder if you could give us a description of what we might be looking for.
Yeah. So this is what we'll go over on the training, but to give you a description, all the phone banking we'll be doing from home because of the pandemic. So we'll be using this website called Voter Builder. And this website, you have to like create an account and log in. And on the website, there's a script, and like on top of, and you're gonna see like a name and a phone number. So you'll be calling people using your phone, or a lot of our volunteers use Google Phone to call people if you don't want people to call you back. So that's how we'll be contacting people. And the method that we use to like reach individuals, the state party, the data team in Raleigh, they categorize the data. We're calling people like registered Democrats, historic volunteers, and Democrats in Cleveland County that have signed up on the Joe Biden website or on the Cal Cunningham website or Roy Cooper's website. So those are the people we're targeting right now. Yeah.
Carlos, this is Mary Degree. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Mary?
Fine. Listen, I'm calling now. Starting when will it just be Cleveland County that we will be working with? Instead of all over the United States?
It will always be, we're always gonna be targeting people in Cleveland County with the phone banking. With text banking, we'll be texting people throughout the state, but the phone banking and the phone bank lists that I make are just gonna be people here in Cleveland County. We might speak to a few people that have like moved out of Cleveland County, but everyone we're gonna be talking to are Democrats here in the county.
Well, will you share with the people about how easy it is to phone bank? Because some people may be a little hesitant about it because they get so many calls themselves, but will you share with the group about how easy it is to phone bank, and the strip and everything is so simple that even a first grader that can read can do it?
It's easy, and I know some people might even if you don't have to read the script like on every call. Like I usually like to read the script like the first 1 to 5 calls, and afterwards I just treat every call like a conversation, because at the end of the day, what we're doing, we're having conversations with Democrats. And in North Carolina, where the margin of victory is 3%, it's a field margin. These conversations lead and have led, and we saw in 2008 for a Democratic victory. So yeah, that's what we have to just remember. We're having conversations with our neighbors, with our friends, and with people we see at the grocery store. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it works better when you're talking to someone just like they're your best friend and all, and make them feel comfortable. So
yes,
I found that to work even better.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Carlos. We appreciate that. And I'm sure you're going to be getting calls from those that have not been volunteering. It is a very easy process. You have it set up very well. So once you make the call, if the person answer, you hang up, another name roll up. It's just that easy. So thank you for doing that. But we're going to move right along. Now we want to talk about the postcard mailing as a way of getting information out. So can I get Laura and Kate to come on and share that information?
Okay, this is Katie Champion. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We're real excited as our Cleveland County chapter of Democratic Women participate in this project. And what the Power of the Pen project is, for those that have never heard of it, it's a project that was developed and it's coordinated by the North Carolina Democratic Women, in which local chapters throughout the state write letters to low propensity, designed to write letters to low propensity registered Democratic women in their county, encouraging them to vote in the upcoming election. So historically, it's been letters. So we presented this project to our members at the July meeting, and they were very interested in participating, very excited. But after some discussion, we felt like postcards would probably be more effective because we would be able to reach out, number one, to more women, because it's less writing, and we would still be able to send a strong message on how important it is to vote in this year's election. We would also be able to print, as you can see on the slide, the top picture is the front of the postcard where we address it. And thanks to Pam Harmon, by the way, for the design, which was initially intended for t-shirts, which we decided to table this year, and maybe midterms we'll go back to t-shirts when we can get out and do fundraisers. But we use the design for the front of the postcards. That's the message we want to send. We vote, we win. Got to get these women out to vote. We felt like postcards would also be more effective because we could print information, real, important information like the early voting locations, dates, and times. And as you can see, we added the website and the telephone number for the Cleveland County Board of Elections, and also the iwillvote.com, which has a lot of additional voting information. So we felt like that would be an advantage because they could stick that up on their fridge and look at it every time they open the refrigerator. Remind them early voting starts, where it is, and what times. So we went back to the Democratic women, the North Carolina Democratic women, to see if we could do postcards, and they were okay with it. They said we could still participate. So they sent us a list of 1,513 Cleveland County low propensity registered Democratic women. We took this back to the August meeting, said, okay, we've got a list of 1,500 women out there who don't vote, and we would, like to send postcards to as many as we can. Well, lo and behold, these women volunteered. When we added up all the numbers, by the end of the meeting, we had over 1,900 postcards that people had volunteered for. So we got 400 more names, ended up with, I think, 1,912 total postcards that we divvied up amongst all our volunteers, purchased the stamps for them. And actually, we had the postcards designed by a company, by Vista Prints online, and got them in this past week, put some packets together, and Laura and I got them delivered to everyone yesterday, with our goal being for the month of September, these postcards can write, 2 or 3 or 4 a day, however many you want, but by September 30th, they will be all written and addressed and ready to mail on October 1st. And so that's what we're going to do. And they've all committed to getting these postcards written. We've got sample messages that they can use, primarily saying, look, we got to get out. You got to get out and vote, how important it is. I mean, that's the message we're sending. It's the election of our lifetime. It's going to make the difference in the direction that our country and our state is going. We've got to go down the right path. And we're telling them to vote for Democrats. As you can see in the red, vote for Democrats for a better America. That's what we want, So I think it's going to make a difference. We all think it's going to make a difference. And studies have shown that handwritten postcards or letters, if they're handwritten, they're more effective in getting people to the polls, or this year in getting them to, mail their ballot in, whichever. We're just telling them to vote whichever way they can. So any questions? Laura, anything you want to add? Laura?
Oh, hey, Katie, I think you covered it all. That's great. And I'm so excited that our group is doing this, and I think we're off and running.
Mm-hmm. We've got a great group of women here, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
they are enthusiastic and ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
And
you.
the other thing is we can measure our results after the election.
Yeah.
Because all this data, the postcards, this is all being entered into Vote Builder. And then we can go back after the election to see how effective we were.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Thank you much, Katie and Laura. You've both done an outstanding job. We really appreciate it.
We had quite the little committee. So Pam, you were no small part. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know she be modest, don't she?
No, they
we
did. They
went
were.
back and forth. We had a group of about 6 of us that were reviewing the design. Laura took charge of that, and we were going back and forth over 2 or 3 days, but until we got it just right. We wanted to make sure that we had everything on there that we wanted to say, and that we, the design was going to work for us. And I mean, it was a great committee that was working on it.
I wish you could share this with the rest of the country. This would be great.
Oh, yes, this is good.
Yeah.
This is something that has been done by the state Democratic women for several years, and it does work. It works. I'm glad we're doing it again in Cleveland County.
And
Thank you, Katie and Laura.
The other thing that they can do, that the DWNC can look in Vote Builder, and they'll know who got postcards, because they ask us to be sure and to include that it was a postcard versus a letter. And that several other chapters across the state elected to do postcards too, as we found out later. But they can measure the results, compare the letters versus the postcards. So going forward, we'll know, if postcards are just as effective or more effective, then, we'll convert over to postcards perhaps instead of letters.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, that's what we're doing.
Excellent. Okay, so we've covered postcard contact, as well as phone banking and text banking. Now let's talk. We can get our messaging out. The pandemic is making it impossible to support the campaign in the same ways as we have in the past. So how do we let people know we Democrats are alive, well, and active? Officers consider the strong CCDP not have a physical headquarters, as we have done historically in late September and October of presidential election years. Why not? In-person gatherings are not advisable. Volunteers aren't eager for public contact. And we can effectively do many things now without a headquarters. For example, phone banking, text banking, and card writing can be done from home. We can hold Zoom gatherings, and as we'll see, we can step up our social media game, all while keeping everyone safe. And there's always signage. We're happy to announce that we have a location to use as our temporary headquarters. It won't be a traditional headquarters. We won't work from this building or meet in this building, but it will provide us with a location where we can store campaign materials for later distribution. And it's a great location in the heart of Shelby, with a large blank canvas of windows on which we can display our Democratic messaging and our contact information. The address is 404 East Marion Street. It's right beside the Employment Security Commission office. Now to yard signs. We have purchased a supply of campaign signs expected to arrive sometime this month. Our plan is to set aside enough signs to place one each at all of our 21 polling sites, the Board of Elections office, and other select strategic locations. Then we will make the remainder of our yard signs available to you and other Democrats or like-minded unaffiliated. I'll also add that David Wilson Brown has signs available now that they will be happy to help you get. They have one distribution place in Shelby already, and I guess Barbara could put that in the chat, and then we'll certainly have their signs at our place too. We are not going to charge for our signs like many campaigns do, but we certainly won't turn down a donation if you're kind enough and able to help us. We would like to do other promotions of our candidates and causes too, and many of them cost money. So if you can donate, we hope you will. Okay. All right, let's move to social media. Now, some ways we're upping our use of social media. First, please take a look at this slide. There are 3 links here we would like for you to know. Our website address, almost ready to go. Our Facebook page address, and our Twitter account address. Here are some of the digital platforms or tools we're already using or will begin using in the coming weeks to get our message out. Email notifications of new articles posted on our website, subscriptions to our newsletter, other information on our website, an active Facebook page, our Twitter account, and virtual meetings through Zoom. Our digital platforms are one of the easiest, fastest, least expensive ways we can get our messages to the widest audience, but it will only work if you help us. We need you to subscribe to our newsletter and news alerts, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Then share, 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 and retweet, retweet, retweet. Let's try a little social interaction right now. Will you commit to helping us share our digital messaging, especially from now until the election? A poll is going to pop up on your screen. It's anonymous, so no one is going to track you down. But if you're serious about this election and want to do something that could have a large impact for a little bit of effort, let us know that you're in. Go ahead and respond to the poll now, please.
So far we've had 61% that have voted, and 83% say, yes, I'm in, and the others say they're not on social media.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about one other way that folks can help us elect Democrats. Okay. Let's talk about Act Blue. We can use Act Blue to help us get out our messaging and turn out the vote. You can donate money to fund our projects, and to make donating something you can do easily and quickly from wherever you are, as long as you can connect to the internet, we have set up an Act Blue account. Act Blue accepts Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. You may use debit or credit cards, and it's open for business 24/7. There are several ways you can donate to us through Act Blue. 2 of those ways are listed on this slide. We will also post links to Act Blue on our Facebook page and on our website. When you get done with tonight's meeting, we hope you'll consider giving Act Blue a try and making a donation to the Cleveland County Democratic Party of North Carolina. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or need any help. And be careful, if you do a search for Cleveland County, you're going to see 2 results return. We'll be the first one. If you donate to the second one, Oklahoma's Cleveland County Democratic Party will really appreciate you, but it won't help us. Okay, Miss Pat, it's back to you.
I have a question before we move on to Pat. This is Betsy.
Okay.
All right, Pam, when you're talking about putting the signs in that building there at near the Employment Commission, you're talking about signs for all of the candidates, you know, our local candidates like school board, our judge, our House, Senate, well, all of them, not just Cal Cunningham and the president and Joe Biden and Lloyd Cooper and David. And I mean, we want all of them in that place, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's my opinion. I don't think we've had a specific conversation about that, but I would assume that that's the plan.
Yes, we're gonna put them all in there.
We will start soon on Facebook promoting our local candidates too. We haven't done much of that yet, but we're getting ready to do that in the next few days. That'll start. Okay, Pat, I think we're ready. Thank you, Betsy.
One of the things that we have always done, and I say always for as many elections as I can remember, is to stand in the voter lines at polling places, at early voting and at precinct places, and hand out material, including dim marked sample ballots and slate cards. It's a traditional thing. Some voters and candidates really rely on us to do that. They rely on us to be there. It's a backup for our candidates when they can't be handing out their own palm cards. They know that we're there handing out sample ballots, for example. We've been talking about it, and I have said, well, we can't have an election in Cleveland County, certainly without Mary Degree being there handing out sample ballots. But we're worried about how can we do it safely. That's one concern. And another concern is how long the ballots are. They're front and back on a legal size paper. So over the next few days, we're going to be talking about, can we do that again? Can we do it? What's the best times to do it? Should we target some locations? And ways to get materials distributed other than standing outside the polling places. I wanted you to know that that is being considered now, and we'll appreciate your input going forward. I don't think we have time for a lot of discussion tonight, but think about it and let us know, okay? Next slide. And I think that's Jerry Blake.
Make yourself a vote champion is what I intended to talk about. And I had said in the beginning that being a good neighbor election-wise is an important thing. And that's the theme, in my opinion, of being a vote champion. Let me tell you that COVID-19 has been a worldwide tragedy, but in one sense, it has given us opportunities as candidate supporters and so forth to be better neighbors than we've ever been. And I have put a strategy that relates to things I think every precinct chairman needs to undertake that will promote these ideas of early voting and getting the right ballot and so forth. We have more resources available instantly to anybody in Cleveland County right now with our website and our Facebook pages and so forth that, for example, on the matter of ballots, all the ballots are clearly printed. We can download the ballot, mark it the way we think it ought to be marked, put it back on the web as a PDF file, and anybody anywhere can see it and see how it's marked. And precinct chairpersons can encourage the distribution of those to every single person who lives in their county without spending a lot on tax or money or anything else. You see what complication the ballot looks like, but if you download it to an individual, you can, if you download a copy and mark it, and then scan it into your machine or photograph it, you can send it to everybody. And in Vote Builder, many people have election email addresses that you might want to send them to. The main thing I'd like to say is if you look at the concepts I'm talking about on the Shanghai webpage, I've posted my description of being a good neighbor election-wise, and that includes a lot of things about how to use the electronic capabilities we have now, including Zoom meetings. Now, let me just say this. For $30, you can have Zoom meetings every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day for 2 months, September and October, if anybody chooses to spend any money for that. It's really possible to get the notion going that you can contact lots of people and give them opportunity for feedback and make that work well. I've got one more thing I want to say. I did a little calculation and it shows that if I can get it, I can't get it up for some reason or other. If you take just 3 people, if each chairperson contacts 3 people and asks them to contact 3 people and ask them to contact 3 people, before you've gone through a group of 5 contacts, you can have 15,000 people solicited. One of my suggestions was, and it might be better on the comedy stage, but it's still, I think, a good idea, take a postcard and make up the postcard that says, I'm going to vote, or you, and put it on your outfit when you go out of the house. If you want to talk to neighbors, people at the grocery store, people wherever and wherever, let them see your sign and ask you what that's all about, and you'll have a chance to invite them to be a part of electing the people we're supporting. So that's my notion. But look at the county website, look at the precinct websites and Facebook pages. There are lots of notions about how you can make this a very personal voter encouragement experience from the word go. And I thank you for the opportunity to say, hey, I appreciate the good meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, now let's take a quick look at some of the resources available to you and other voters and suggestions that we will be making to you. First, let's have yourself a plan for how you'll vote and urge everyone else to have a plan as well. In 3 ways that you can do this, you can request an early ballot and mark it at home. Then either mail it or take it to the Board of Election and deliver it personally. Either at an early voting site. Now, you cannot take it to a polling site on election day. You cannot take your ballot to an early polling site on election day. Now, if you want to deliver your ballot personally to the Board of Election or to any early voting site, here's what to expect. Remember that only you, the voter, or what the Board of Election defines as your nearest relative, may deliver your ballot. You can't have someone else who is not a near relative drop it off. And so when you drop it off, your ballot, you'll be asked to log in with your name recorded and your signature. If you have any questions about this, then you can give us a call. Ms. Pat?
Thank you, Curtis. I'll go as quickly as I can. Jerry and Curtis both have mentioned the resources that are available. And I want to point out, for those of you using your computers, the North Carolina State Board of Elections.gov website, it has wonderful resources on it, including, as Jerry said, your own sample ballot. You can use its voter search to see your own sample ballot and your voter record and the state of your registration. You can confirm it there. There are other good sites. You can vote.org and Democracy NC. Both of those have very good resources. I would tell you that the state board, I rely on it most because I know that it's got very factual information. And with the way they've revamped it just last week, it's even easier to use than it was before. We'll communicate more about these resources and get them out to you in other ways so that you can have them handy when you need to have a question. Next slide, Kent. As far as contacts go, remember that you can always call the Cleveland County Democratic Party. You can email us or phone us. And I would tell you that you will get one of us, a volunteer. We're everyone on this call, a volunteer, working together. As I have often said, there's no big Democrat in the sky who's pulling strings and getting things organized and doing things. We've got to do it ourselves. So use what you've heard tonight and always call us. When you have a need for information, we can steer you to the right source. And don't forget the Cleveland County Board of Elections. The staff there is very helpful. And when we're really stumped, that's where we go for answers. Next slide. Curtis, I think that's yours.
Okay. All right, guys, we're getting ready to close up this meeting here, just a few more minutes here, and we'll be finished with this meeting. Thank you all so much for being on this meeting. I know it's been a little bit long. I know a lot of you came to hear Cal, and unfortunately he didn't come, but we will be having him come at our next meeting, I'm quite sure. So just to finish up, so it's imperative that we vote in such numbers that the results just can't be denied. We need to vote overwhelmingly by mail, early voting, or at our precincts on election day. This pandemic cannot stop us, nor can Donald Trump stop us. When we Democrats, we know that when we go and vote, we win. So let's do this thing as a team, because no one individual can do it. So let's do it as a team, and let's turn North Carolina blue. So with having said that,
may I say one thing? The Cleveland County Board of Elections has done a great job of separating and individualizing every single ballot for the county. All you have to know to find it is your precinct name, and they should be recognized, I think, for having done that so well.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's a good place for us to conclude this meeting. And we're looking forward to gathering with you again in the next couple of weeks ahead. So if you would, just please mark your calendar for October the 6th, at 7 p.m. We will have another meeting, and we will meet more of the candidates and have more discussion. So again, thank you all for attending this meeting. I know it was long, but you're good Democrats, and so we'll get it done. Thanks again.